Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You sent us a fascinating stack of sources this week, a true interdisciplinary mix, and our mission is to cut through some of that density and pull out the actionable insights.
Yeah, there's a lot to get through.
Let's just start with the feeling I think every single listener has right now, which is just information overload.
Yeah.
We live in a world of constant input. I mean, think about the incredible amount of work your brain is doing right now just to keep your reality model stable. It's running these massive computational programs. You know, where is the coffee cup? What does that email notification mean? Should I worry about that noise upstairs?
It's true. The brain is an extraordinarily busy, really energy-intensive prediction machine. It's always striving to make sense of the world by minimizing surprise.
And surprise is the key word here, right?
It is. That feeling of anxiety or, that sudden jolt of confusion when something unexpected happens, that is basically computational stress manifesting subjectively. Every single piece of unresolved noise, internal or external, costs the system energy.
And that leads us to the core paradox of this deep dive, which is something I think is, well, it's truly beautiful. What if the most profound path to internal peace isn't about adding more knowledge or more data or building more complicated models,
Right.
but about achieving a state where the prediction workload is minimized, driven down to, what, near zero?
Exactly. Our source material today beautifully fuses two pretty disparate domains. We are crossing the rigorous landscape of modern computational neuroscience, specifically the active inference framework.
Which is a highly detailed mathematical model of how the brain works. It's not just a concept.
Not at all. It's very mathematical. And we're crossing that with the practical, experiential wisdom of contemplative traditions. We're focusing on advanced concentrative meditation like jhana and this idea of a minimal phenomenal experience, or MPE.
So our mission then is to explore how the brain, from a purely mathematical and really an energetic perspective, can find a kind of computational shortcut to bliss.
A shortcut is a good way to put it.
It does this by finding a sensory signal so simple and so predictable, like the intentional rhythmic breath, that the total workload of prediction error across the entire system just collapses. The brain literally rewards the efficiency.
What's truly revealing here, and this is the thesis we really have to hold on to, is that the state we experience phenomenologically as deep, effortless peace and profound pleasure is computationally defined by a radical reduction in surprise.
So when the system successfully minimizes prediction error across all its hierarchical levels, you feel peace.
You feel peace. That's the output.
Okay, let's unpack this. This is where the complexity of the math meets the, I guess, the simplicity of the experience. We have to start with the active inference mechanics to really understand why the breath is such a powerful hack.
Right. So the active inference framework views the brain not just as a computer, but as this elegant, self-organizing inference system. And its sole purpose is to maintain a model of the world and itself by continuously minimizing error.
And it does this in a loop, right?
In a constant loop. It performs three continuous interconnected functions.
Let's call this loop the beautiful loop of self-modeling for our discussion. So the first function is the most intuitive one. The system infers the external causes of its sensations. So if your sensors detect a pattern of heat and aroma, your brain infers that an object called coffee is causing that complex array of sensations. Simple input leads to a causal inference.
Right. And the second function is the critical step for our discussion on awareness and consciousness. The system doesn't just infer the cause, it simultaneously runs a hyperprocess.
A hyperprocess?
Yeah, a process about the process. And it predicts the precision, the confidence, or reliability that each sensory channel deserves.
So it's asking itself, is my visual input trustworthy right now? Is my internal bodily sense, my interoception clear? It's assigning a real-time confidence score to every piece of data.
A confidence score is exactly it. So if you're walking through a quiet park, your auditory sensory channel has a high predicted precision. You trust what you hear.
But if I'm at a loud rock concert, the auditory channel has low predicted precision. I just assume that signal is highly noisy and unreliable. This hyperprocess is constantly assessing the quality of its own tools.
Precisely. And the third function closes the loop. The system broadcasts those predicted precisions back across the entire neural hierarchy. It uses them to reweight the ongoing prediction error signals.
So if the visual signal is predicted to be precise high confidence, the brain turns up its gain it pays more attention to it, and it trusts its resulting inferences more.
And if that gut feeling is predicted to be imprecise, low confidence, the brain effectively ignores it. It's continuously adjusting its own volume knobs based on its internal confidence forecast.
I see. So because this loop continuously evaluates and then updates its own confidence about its own inferences, it achieves what the sources call the simplest possible case of recursive self-modeling.
Yes, it's self-referencing in real time, all the time.
And that seems to lead to a really profound philosophical implication within this model. If the system is constantly creating and refining its internal model, then where is knowing located?
Well, the sources suggest the entire world model, including the self, is being reflected within the recursive system itself.
So you don't need a little man in the machine, no homunculus sitting inside the brain watching a screen and deciding what to do.
Exactly. The state of knowing is baked into the ongoing computational process.
The continuous creation and refinement of the model. It just evidences its own reality. I think the term was field evidencing.
That's right. The knowledge that the system is operating is continuously and distributively verified across the entire hierarchy. It knows itself by being itself.
Okay, so this recursive self-modeling, where the system is monitoring its own monitoring.
Yeah.
That's what the framework defines as epistemic depth.
Yes. It's not just modeling the world, is that a chair? But modeling how you are modeling the world. How confident am I in my chair identifying algorithm right now?
This knowing that it knows idea, it really feels like the root of true awareness or lucidity. It's the minimal demonstration of a system that can track its own success in real time.
It is formalized beautifully in the math. The global loop includes not just a model of external and internal reality, but also a model of its own inferential success and failure. This is why consciousness, in this formal language, is seen as the recurrent sharing of Bayesian beliefs throughout the whole hierarchical system.
And that constant global communication allows the world model to contain the knowledge that it exists.
That's it.
Okay, let's try to ground this. Let's contrast it with a simpler mechanism the brain uses all the time. Sensory attenuation.
Good idea. Sensory attenuation is a much more localized, temporary dampening. Think about when you make a rapid eye movement, a saccade.
Right, your eye jumping from one word to the next.
Exactly. To prevent the entire world from seeming to jump or blur wildly, the system temporarily lowers the precision or the confidence in the visual sensory consequences that it predicts will result from that eye movement. This is called saccadic suppression.
That's a practical hack, isn't it? The brain predicts the self-generated noise, the eye movement, and just temporarily mutes the input so we can focus on forging the visual scene, on gathering new low-error data.
Exactly. Sensory attenuation is necessary for efficient local attention. But epistemic depth, which is driven by this hyper model, is far more profound. It's a global, continuous, self-referential process that underpins the whole subjective experience of lucidity.
It's the awareness that you were paying attention, not just the fact that you muted the sound of your own movement.
You've got it. It's the difference between temporarily turning down the mic because you're about to cough versus this system monitoring the health of the entire broadcasting studio 24/7.
So let's drill down on that studio manager, the hypermodel. This is the global governor, the entity that manages epistemic depth. It's not concerned with the content, right? It doesn't care if you're looking at an apple or a skyscraper.
Not at all. It's like the brain's chief accountant. The hypermodel globally monitors and forecasts precision dynamics across the entire neural hierarchy. Its latent states encode and control the overall structure, the key weighting rules for all the layers of inference below it.
So it's setting the fundamental parameters of attention for the entire system, moment by moment.
That's its job. So if the external environment suddenly becomes highly uncertain, say a traffic accident happens, the hypermodel instantly increases the predicted precision of threat-relevant channels like your hearing and your visual saliency.
And it lowers the precision of non-critical channels, like the feeling of the chair under you.
Exactly. But because this confidence calculation is non-local and global, it has to affect everything simultaneously to maintain coherence. It requires constant recursive communication. This is called recursive message passing.
And this is where we get into that tricky but crucial concept of prediction error over precision. Second-order prediction errors. Let's slow down here.
Les, think of it this way. The hypermodel predicts that your confidence in your vision should be, say, 80% right now.
Okay.
But the actual incoming data suggests your vision is only 60% reliable. The difference between the predicted 80% confidence and the actual 60% confidence generates a second-order prediction error.
So it's not simply being surprised by the world. That's a first-order error, like, I predicted a quiet street, but I heard a crash. This is being surprised by my own ability to handle the world.
Yes. I predicted I'd be able to process this crash calmly, but my cognitive system is totally overloaded.
It's being surprised by your own surprise, in a way.
Precisely. The system is constantly checking itself, ensuring it's confident in its confidence. The hypermodel generates these descending predictions of precision, which are then reflected back up as this prediction error over precision.
And that continuous self-checking must be computationally demanding.
It is, but it's absolutely necessary to maintain the lucidity we're defining as epistemic depth. And the efficiency of this self-monitoring is really the key to accessing deep peace.
Okay, now that we have the computational structure, let's talk about the biological currency that drives it. It seems we can't talk about how the brain manages uncertainty and confidence without talking about neurochemistry, specifically dopamine.
Right.
For decades, the narrative was so simple. Dopamine equals reward.
That traditional view dopamine signaling unexpected rewards, it's certainly valid, but active inference offers a more foundational, more generalized interpretation. In this framework, dopamine release is far more fundamental. It reports the system's assessment of precision or uncertainty.
So it's not just reward. It's signaling salience, confidence, how much attention a pathway deserves. So a large, unexpected reward generates dopamine, not just because the reward is good, but because the system was very certain about one outcome, maybe a small reward, and received a highly uncertain or novel outcome, a large reward. And that forces a rapid recalculation of its expectations.
Exactly. Dopamine marks that unexpected shift in confidence. And there is definitive neurophysiological evidence supporting this. Dopaminergic discharges are observed to vary not just with the size of the reward, but crucially, with the variance or the precision of that reward.
So it's the surprise factor.
It's the surprise, the uncertainty. Look at any experiment that evokes a dopamine response novelty, unexpected outcomes, even an unexpected threat. All of them speak directly to a sudden, forced change in the level of confidence about what happens next.
And mechanically, what is dopamine actually doing in the system to encode this precision?
It acts as a gain modulator. Dopamine shifts striatal neurons into an up state to increase their gain or their precision. It's physically turning up the sensitivity dial,
Making the predictions generated by that specific neural cluster louder, faster, and more trusted by the overall system.
It's stamping an internal, highly reliable label on that particular pathway.
This precision encoding role of dopamine, it immediately clarifies several clinical issues, doesn't it? Let's use Parkinson's disease as an example.
Absolutely. We can model Parkinson's as a failure of this precision signaling. If we assume that baseline tonic dopamine activity encodes a necessary fixed level of precision that's required for smooth operation, then dopaminergic depletion, a hallmark of Parkinson's, illustrates its central role in high-level control. Specifically, the deficit cripples action selection and set switching.
Which manifests as that classic difficulty initiating or stopping movement, or the cognitive rigidity, that inability to switch between different mental tasks.
The difficulty arises because the system can no longer precisely weigh one possible action path over all the others. If you want to move your hand to grab a cup, the brain has to select that action with high confidence and suppress billions of other possible movements.
And without enough dopamine signal, the precision assigned to the desired action is low, the error is high, and the system is effectively paralyzed by uncertainty. It just can't commit.
It can't commit, yeah.
So we have to move beyond just the external world now. Active inference requires the brain to model everything that affects its survival. And that includes turning inward to what some people call the sixth sense, interoception.
Interoception, yes. The perception of our internal visceral signals, the quiet information pouring in from the heart, the gut, the lungs, the hormonal systems. For this prediction machine to maintain homeostasis and keep the organism alive, it needs an accurate, low-error model of this internal world.
So if the heart rate is fluctuating wildly, that generates a high prediction error and, subjectively, a feeling of anxiety.
Exactly.
And is there a control center for this internal data torrent?
The insular cortex, or the insula, is identified as the critical hub. It acts as the integrative center for saliency, what's important, cognitive control, and interoceptive awareness. It's essentially the central processor that maps these subtle internal feelings onto complex cognitive and emotional states.
And the relevance here is huge, especially for modern mental health.
It's foundational. When this system fails to predict internal signals accurately, or when the internal signals themselves become noisy and unreliable, it's implicated in major conditions. Think of anxiety disorders, where the internal noise of a racing heart is misinterpreted as an external threat.
Or chronic pain, where the physical sensation generates unresolvable prediction error.
Right. Accurate internal prediction is absolutely paramount for survival and psychological stability. If your internal model is noisy, your entire reality model is shaky.
This brings us directly to the central mechanism we came here to explore, the computational shortcut to peace. We established that the brain is constantly working to minimize prediction error, or surprise, across incredibly noisy and complex channels.
And think about the sheer energetic cost of this. External noise is one thing, traffic, loud music, complex visual scenes. But the internal noise is arguably worse.
Worse? How so?
Fluctuating heart rates, minor digestive aches, and perhaps most costly of all, racing, repetitive thoughts. These are internal processes that demand massive computational energy to model accurately. The brain has to generate highly specific, precise predictions just to counteract that constant volatility.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. And the sources confirm that this noise is the computational load. The system is just working overtime, burning energy to keep these spinning plates of prediction from crashing.
And this is where the profound efficiency hack comes in. This is the unique power of the breath. If the system can locate a sensory stream that is stable, continuous, and crucially self-generated and highly predictable,
Like the rhythmic, intentional breath.
it has found a prediction jackpot.
Because the breath is consciously controllable and rhythmic, the uncertainty surrounding that internal signal just plummets immediately. The brain knows exactly what the next input will be.
Exactly. When a meditator focuses their attention, they are, in active inference terms, radically increasing the precision weighting of that predictable sensory stream. They are turning the volume dial on the breath input to 11.
And the brain inherently rewards this certainty and low error.
It does. And here's the genius of it. By elevating the precision of this one stable signal, the brain can simultaneously and efficiently downweight all the other noisy channels that were previously generating high error. It's an energetic trade-off.
So the external noise, the traffic, uncomfortable clothes, and the internal noise, the anxious rumination, the memory loops, the minor aches and pains, they suddenly generate less prediction error for the entire system.
Because the heavily weighted, stable breath signal is dominating the calculation. The brain effectively ignores those distractions because they're no longer salient enough to warrant high-precision modeling.
So the overall prediction error for the entire system drastically reduces, simply because the most heavily weighted signal, the rhythmic breath, has near zero surprise. The system achieves global computational efficiency.
The total computational load drops dramatically. And the phenomenological experience of this near-zero prediction error, where the system is suddenly operating with immense efficiency and certainty, is felt as deep peace, stillness, and often profound bliss.
So the brain is rewarding the efficiency of a perfectly predicted self with internal tranquility. It's the ultimate energy dividend.
It is. I think that's a crucial point to emphasize. The feeling of bliss isn't some mystical side effect. It is the biological reward for the brain successfully finding maximal certainty and minimal computational workload.
It's the system giving itself a gold star for a job well done.
Absolutely. It has minimized the free energy required to maintain its internal model.
Okay, this computational framework provides us with an extraordinary lens to view ancient contemplative practices. We can now mathematically analyze these states of profound clarity and rest that practitioners have described for millennia. The sources call them minimal phenomenal experiences, or MPEs.
Right. MPEs are vivid, deeply self-aware states of consciousness that are paradoxically informationally sparse.
What does that mean, informationally sparse?
It means they are simple, singular, and often described as contentless. No objects, no thoughts, just pure awareness. Yet, they possess exceptional clarity and often feel luminous and true.
But how can clarity exist without content? I mean, if the brain is a modeling machine, how can it be lucid yet have nothing to model?
This requires us to return to the hypermodel. MPE is achieved when two specific computational conditions are met. First, the hypermodel must be doing an excellent job at predicting global precision dynamics.
So the system is highly self-aware and lucid, as trained during long periods of stillness.
Right, but simultaneously, every local sensory and cognitive precision has the same extremely low density weight.
So the system is fully lucid, the knowing that it knows is operating at peak efficiency, but because the sensory stream, both internal and external, is uniform, minimal, and entirely predictable, there's no complex content or differentiation to process.
There's nothing to surprise the system. but the system is acutely aware of its own lack of surprise. That's the key. This state is sometimes experienced transiently during deep sleep, though with low lucidity, and is most expertly cultivated among contemplatives who specifically train to manage and minimize their internal sensory environment.
Making it predictable and uniform.
Exactly.
And the path toward MPE often involves these advanced concentrative absorption practices known in Buddhist traditions as jhana meditation. The sources highlight specific neurodynamic shifts that occur as practitioners move deeper into these states.
Yeah, we see clear evidence of large-scale functional network reconfiguration. As meditators move into the later jhana states, which are the most probable candidates for MPE, their functional network dynamics shift dramatically toward near bifurcation working points.
Okay, that sounds dense. If a bifurcation point is a moment of critical change like water turning to ice, what does near bifurcation working point mean for the brain?
It means the brain is operating at a globally susceptible, highly flexible, near-critical state. It's poised right on the edge of a phase transition. This means it's maximally responsive to small changes, but also highly stable. The complex, rigid hierarchies of brain function temporarily dissolve, giving way to this generalized flexibility.
And the most significant shift happens in the default mode network, the DMN, which is the network we associate with our internal monologue, self-referential thought, rumination, the constant construction of our self-narrative.
The DMN exhibits the largest shift, by far. It moves away from its usual distant, noise-driven regime, what we experience as that chaotic, nagging internal noise, to that near-critical dynamic.
The brain is releasing its grip on the high-energy, prediction-intensive narrative structure that constitutes our usual sense of self.
Because the prediction error has been successfully minimized through that sustained internal stability. In other words, the energy-intensive self-modeling process, which is responsible for most of our mental chatter, quiets down because the stability of the input, the breath, the stillness, confirms that everything is perfectly predictable.
The DMN has nothing left to worry about or ruminate on.
It's the computational system achieving profound relaxation because its core task predicting the future of the self has become trivialized by continuous, predictable input.
The genius of these ancient contemplative paths is that they developed robust mechanisms to control this precision, even without the language of active inference. The practice of mindfulness of breathing, or ānāpānasati, is described in the source material as exceptionally fruitful and beneficial.
It is. This practice is explicitly designed to fulfill the criteria for maximizing stability and precision. By focusing on the breath, the practitioner fulfills the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, specifically treating the in-breaths and out-breaths as an aspect of the body, a visceral, interoceptive process.
And the instruction is to just observe the breath, whether heavily, lightly, or ultimately achieving the stilling of physical processes.
Yes. By observing this simple, repetitive rhythm, the practitioner becomes keen, aware, and mindful, and critically, begins ridding themselves of desire and aversion for the world. And computationally, desire and aversion are just forms of high prediction error.
The gap between the expected state and the current state.
Exactly. By making the current internal state perfectly predictable with the breath, the system collapses the need for desire or aversion, radically lowering the global prediction error.
This precision control mechanism is highly accessible through modern techniques as well. We see simple, rhythmic practices like box breathing becoming incredibly popular.
Box breathing is a simple and really effective hack. It uses a rhythmic, predictable, pattern-equal phases of inhale, hold, exhale, hold, usually 4 seconds each. Research overwhelmingly supports its ability to lower stress and improve focus, precisely because that predictable, rhythmic input creates an immediate, stable, low-error signal for the brain to prioritize.
It rapidly regulates the autonomic nervous system by giving the prediction machine exactly what it wants. Certainty.
Certainty. Then you have practices at the opposite end of the intensity spectrum, like holotropic breathwork, HBW, continuous, rapid, deep mouth breathing, sometimes for hours. This does not sound like stillness. It sounds like massive chaos.
It does. How does that fit in?
It's a different strategy, but it's still fundamentally a mechanism of forcing precision control. Unlike concentrative meditation, HBW rapidly spikes prediction errors. The intense hyperventilation massively alters blood chemistry and sensory input, forcing the system into a state of profound physiological and emotional turbulence.
So this induced chaos forces the system's priors, its fundamental beliefs about reality, to be temporarily invalidated.
You got it. So instead of slowly reducing error, you spike the error so high that the system has no choice but to rapidly tear down and rebuild its reality model. This often leads to deep emotional purging or a release of somatic memory.
So it forces a complete recalibration.
A total recalibration. Once the intense breathing stops, the system often settles into a state of immense stillness and clarity, having successfully purged the high-error components, trauma, rigid thought patterns from its model. It finally arrives at a state of low internal error, just via a much more turbulent route.
And the ultimate contemplative goal, achieving these deep immersion or jhana states, involves moving progressively through stages of increasing internal stability.
Yes. The path starts with rapturous bliss, the first absorption, which is characterized by the pleasure of seclusion and successfully controlling attention. And it moves up to the fourth absorption.
And the fourth is described as a state of pure equanimity and mindfulness without pleasure or pain, where the physical process is stilled.
This is the ultimate predictability. The mendicant has, as the texts say, gone to the end of the world and meditates at the end of the world because the self-model of the body has been silenced by perfect, continuous, low-error prediction.
Okay, we have to address the current fascination with psychedelics. These substances are known for generating massive feelings of insight, new knowledge, vast complexity, profound connectivity, which seems diametrically opposed to the goal of achieving peace through minimal content. How does active inference reconcile these two paths?
This requires a very careful distinction about how the knowledge is generated. Psychedelics are understood to greatly reduce the strength of pre-existing beliefs, or priors.
Right.
By reducing the confidence in what the system thought it knew, the sensory data is suddenly reweighted, leading to massive, unconstrained prediction error.
So if the priors collapse, the system is just wide open to new inferences, new ways of structuring reality, which is interpreted subjectively as heightened insight and novelty.
Correct. But the sources provide a warning here about the false beliefs that can arise under psychedelics. This is because there is no mechanism inherent in the drug experience that necessarily selects for the accuracy of that insight.
The model is just restructuring rapidly in response to a chaotic biochemical signal.
It is. The resulting reality model is often richer and more complex, like a vivid dream state. But the sources note that in these states, epistemic depth remains relatively low.
So you have content, but you lack lucidity. That's the definition of dreaming, or a psychedelic trip where you lose touch with objective reality. You might believe the sofa is talking to you, but you don't know that you know you're in an altered state.
Precisely. You feel brilliant, but the content may be flawed because the system's ability to self-monitor its own reliability, epistemic depth, is impaired by the overwhelming prediction error. Compare that to the medicator who generates lucidity by minimizing error.
And yet, even when the world model is turned upside down, when the user is transported to what feels like an insane place awareness is still present, the individual is often able to observe the chaos.
And that is the enduring power of consciousness rooted in the hypermodel. That flexible, globally aware consciousness, relying on the deep recursion of the hypermodel, allows the system to observe its own thoughts and beliefs and to witness their restructuring. You can be in the chaos and outside of it at the same time.
It's the ultimate testament to the system's ability to model its own modeling process. And that capacity, the recursive self-awareness enabled by epistemic depth, is why this framework suggests consciousness is required for full, general artificial intelligence.
It is. It's the ability to know that your own reality model might be collapsing, but still retain the awareness that you are the observer of that collapse.
So to sum it up, the contemplative achieves profound awareness by maximizing precision over simplicity, leading to a contentless clarity.
While the psychedelic experience achieves structural change by maximizing prediction error, leading to content-rich novelty, both rely on the machinery of epistemic depth, but they utilize vastly different energetic strategies.
This has been an incredibly rich journey. We started this deep dive with the dense, complex mathematical theory of active inference. We were talking hypermodels, second-order errors, precision weighting, and we've ended, logically and simply, on the universal, accessible act of breathing.
The synthesis is unmistakable. Our subjective experience of peace is a direct function of the computational efficiency of the brain. Maximizing computational capacity isn't always about processing more complex data.
Right.
It's about creating such stable, simple internal predictions, like a deeply rhythmic breath, that the prediction error collapses. The system can then just coast into a state of minimal surprise.
Peace, tranquility, and even deep meditative pleasure are the neurophysiological reward for an exceptionally well-predicted self. So for you, the learner, whether you are trying to cut through cognitive fog before a high-stakes meeting or seeking deep inner calm, the fundamental mechanism is the same. The brain rewards certainty and efficiency with a state of profound tranquility. Control the precision, control the peace.
And this leaves us with our final provocative thought, building on the concept of minimal phenomenal experience and maximal epistemic depth. We often equate true insight with complexity.
Yeah, a rich, detailed new narrative, a psychedelic vision, or a dense piece of research that connects 1,000 separate facts.
But if the ultimate state of knowing that it knows, maximal epistemic depth and lucidity is achieved when the world model becomes simple, singular, and contentless, what does that tell us about the nature of truth?
What does it mean for knowledge to be perfectly precise, luminous, and true, yet simultaneously empty of information?
That is a profound paradox built right into the structure of your own awareness and something for you to mull over in the quiet spaces you create for yourself.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.